Good morning, brethren, and welcome to our bi-weekly program entitled The Word in a Glimpse, which is broadcast live on Facebook every Monday and every Wednesday at 8 a.m. West Africa time, which is 7 a.m. GMT. Today is Monday, the 5th of June, 2023, and our topic this morning is entitled The Challenging Faith, Part 1. The Challenging Faith, Part 1. Let's first explain the meaning of this title. We first just wanted to name it Challenging Faith. But when we say challenging faith, that may bear some confusion. People might mean that we are talking of, or that we want you to challenge your faith. But when we say challenging faith, we don't mean that one has to challenge faith. No, not that. We instead mean faith that challenges situations, faith that challenges circumstances, challenges that challenges people, and so on. Now then, challenging faith means faith that challenges. This is why we have put the at the beginning of the phrase, because we don't want that confusion to be in anybody's mind. So instead of saying just challenging faith, we said the challenging faith. Now, the challenging faith means the faith that challenges. And challenging faith is faith that rises to challenges, faith that stands up to adversity. And the Word of God, the Holy Bible, gives us many examples of challenging faith. The one that we are going to talk about this morning concerns Moses and his family. So let's read in the book of Exodus, chapter 2, verses 1 to 10. Exodus chapter 2, verses 1 to 10. Let's read. And a man of the house of Levi went and took as wife a daughter of Levi. So the woman conceived and bore a son. And when she saw that he was a beautiful child, she hid him 3 months. When she could no longer hide him, she took a knock of bulrushes for him, daubed it with asphalt and pitch, and put the child in it, and laid it in the reeds by the river's bank. And his sister stood afar off to know what would be done to him. Then the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river, and her maidens walked along the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the reeds, she sent her maid to get it. And when she opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the baby wept. So she had compassion on him and said, "This is one of the Hebrews' children." Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and call a nurse for you from the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for you?" And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." So the maiden went and called the child's mother. Then Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take the child away and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages." So the woman took the child and nursed him. And the child grew, and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. So she called his name Moses, saying, "Because I drew him out of the water." So this is the story of Moses. Let's first explain the setting that was in that time when Moses was born. You see, there was an official decree an official decision by Pharaoh stating that every male baby who was born to Hebrews was to be cast into the river, was to be cast into River Nile, for the baby to die, of course. Thus, every male baby born to a Hebrew family was to be cast into the river by his own parents, or at least the baby was to be reported to the Egyptians, who would then make certain that the baby be cast into the river. So this implied that the family that would not either kill or report the male newborn baby would run into trouble, into very serious trouble, and even certainly face death penalty. So it is in these circumstances that Moses was born. So there was a descendant of Levi, a man named Amram, who took as wife another descendant of Levi named Jochebed. Amram and Jochebed bore Miriam and Aaron. Then at a certain time, during the dark times of Pharaoh's decree, Jochebed became pregnant once more, and 9 months later, she bore a son. She saw that her son was a very beautiful child, and she fell in love with him. She felt much love for her son, which made her decide not to kill him and not to let him die at all. So Jochebed made a choice, the choice of sparing her son's life. She made the choice of challenging Pharaoh and his decree. And that was a very dangerous thing, yet she did it. She clearly knew that she was taking much risk in hiding his son, in hiding her son, instead of having her son be put to death. She knew that she would be risking her life in hiding her son. Yet she made the decision to hide him and to let him die. You see, it is very impressive to see how the whole family collaborated for this. Because when she made that decision, her husband could just report the child in order to avoid any death penalty or any other kind of trouble for them. Miriam and Aaron could tell the neighbors that there was a male child in the house, yet all of them remained silent. All of them cooperated to hide this baby boy. When a family lives in harmony, when a family moves in the same direction, when a family has the same spirit, it is a great power. It is something wonderful. It is something very positive. So Jochebed made the decision to hide her son and to let him live. In a certain way, Jochebed was convinced that his son would not die, that his son would live. She fully committed herself to God for the salvation of her son. She hid her son and she nursed her son for 3 whole months. But then came the time when she could no longer hide him, when she could no longer hide her son. Maybe because the baby was becoming noisy. We know that a 3-month baby is somehow noisy. So when the baby would make noise, the neighbors would come to visit her to see her baby, and they would notice that the baby is a male baby. So it was no longer possible to continue hiding that baby. You know, there is always a time in everybody's life. There is always a time in our lives when we can no longer do what we used to do or what we intended to do. There is always a time when we feel limited. And in such times, we have to call on God. But what did Jochebed do? So when the time came when Jochebed could no longer hide her son in her house, she then had to make a decision, a life decision. Either the decision of killing the child or of continue to keep the child. In fact, she had to make the decision of taking rid of the baby because the baby could no longer be hidden in the house. So she had to take rid of the baby. And according to the decree of Pharaoh, the only thing that she had to do, that she was expected to do, was to let her son die. To go and cast her son into the river. Or to let the Egyptians come, take her child, and go and throw it into River Nile. Yet she already had made the decision not to let her son die, even though she could no longer hide him. Not only did Jochebed not want her son to die, moreover, she was convinced that her son would not die. In fact, she made certain that her son dies not, that her son died not. So she took a knock of bulrushes and daubed it with asphalt and pitch to make it waterproof. Then she led her son in that ark, and she put the ark in the reeds by the river's bank. You see, she did this to make certain that her son would not die. Because instead of casting her son into the river, when she bore him, he didn't do it. She instead hid her son and nursed her son for 3 months. And after those 3 months, when she could no longer hide her son in her house, instead of casting her son into River Nile, she put her son inside an ark. She put her son in a waterproof ark. And instead of throwing that ark in the river for the river to take the ark downward anywhere, no. She led the ark by the river's bank. so that the ark would remain into that place. And she even left her daughter Miriam not too far from the place where she had led the ark, where she had put the ark, just to see what would happen to her son. She was convinced that her son would live, and she was determined to let his child live, to let his son live. So this was an act of faith. This was an act of challenging faith. She paid little heed to the risks that she was facing. Yet she was determined to stand up to Pharaoh's decree. And that's when the grace of God came into action. You know, challenging faith moves the grace of God. The grace of God made Pharaoh's daughter feel the need to go to the river to bathe at that same time. She could have gone to the river before that time or long after, yet God pushed her to the river at that time. God put into Pharaoh's daughter the need to go to the river, the need to go and bathe into the river. You know, in those times, I'm certain that there were Hebrew slaves who used to carry water from the river to the palace for all the children of Pharaoh to bathe there, for Pharaoh himself and his family. And that girl, Pharaoh's daughter, could have bathed in the palace. But God put in her heart the desire to go to the river, to go and bathe in the river instead of doing it at home. And exactly at that time, because if another Egyptian had found that baby, certainly that Egyptian would have cast the baby into the water to kill it, to kill that baby. So the Pharaoh's daughter decided to go and bathe, and she went there, of course, not alone, with her maidens. And while by the river, while she was there, she and her maidens walked along the riverside, and especially the maidens, certainly while she was already bathing. And the maidens were walking along the riverside till they saw the ark among the reeds. And they told Pharaoh's daughter, oh, there is an ark there among the reeds. Out of curiosity, Pharaoh's daughter told them to pick that ark and bring it to her. So she took the ark, she opened the ark, and she saw a very handsome baby boy inside. And at that exact time, the baby wept, maybe out of hunger, or I don't know, but the baby wept. And when the baby wept, Pharaoh's daughter was moved with compassion. And she decided to adopt the baby. She knew that it was a Hebrew baby, yet she was moved with compassion. God put compassion in her heart for the baby. So she was moved with compassion and she decided to adopt the baby. We're going to stop here today and come back to the same teaching on Wednesday. Meanwhile, God bless you abundantly beyond all your expectations. and have a wonderful week.